Charlie, welcome to F.A.C.E. I'm going to get you set up so we could have a little conversation here. I've been looking forward to this, so I'm going to promote you to being a panelist. And I'm not sure if you want to use your video camera or not.
You're talking to the least technologically adept.
I
can see you. Charlie. Can you see me?
No. Do you have a there's a thing called
if you click start video. If you click start video.
And see, maybe you can make this full screen. I'm not going to show charts during this, so.
Share screen, start video.
Start video.
We're in.
There you are. Hey, Charlie, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Really nice to meet you. You know, I've been following your work for a long time, and I really like the fact that you say what you mean and mean what you say. And you know, I'm interested in talking about what's going on in the country right now and what your sources may be telling you. But you know, I'd like to start with maybe a little time machine trip back in high school, college. What were your aspirations, and how did you end up becoming both a broadcast and print journalist?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because my brother and I are kind of the first people in our family to graduate from real high school. My parents went to vocational schools. I think my mother dropped out when she was 16 to be a secretary. My dad was went to something called Samuel Gompers High School in the South Bronx. It's a vocational school. Either one went to college. He went to the Marines after high school. My mom was a secretary. And the last thing they wanted me to be was a journalist. You know, they wanted me to be a lawyer. They wanted my brother kind of to be a doctor. My brother became a doctor, by the way.
Sounds like like my family. Is it that a lot of ethnics? You know, I was brought up in my mother was bar mitzvahed at 13, and you know, for me to go to the floor at the CME and be a runner wasn't my mother's dream for me after I went to college. You know, she would say, well, "Honey, get a real job."
My parents would have liked that because it was Wall Street. You could make a lot of money, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the journalism thing just did not turn it. And my dad was a huge Richard Nixon supporter, and you know, he was like part of that blue collar stuff that you see now following Donald Trump. You know, although my dad was also, you know, listen, he was a self-educated guy. He read a lot, and he read 3 papers a day. He read the Times, he read books, and that's how I kind of got into journalism, just seeing what he read and I read. I initially wanted to be a sports writer, but then I got into politics and finance. And what I did was I took as an undergrad studying journalism, I took an elementary economics class, and I really liked it. Wasn't particularly good at it, but I was intrigued by it. And I kept taking more. When I went to graduate school, I took a bunch at the University of Missouri, which is a very good journalism school. Yes. I took a bunch of econ classes. I earned, like in graduate school, between graduate and undergrad, the equivalent of minor in econ, because I took so much econ as a graduate student. And this was a lot of it was upper level undergraduate econ, where I would have to make up for my gaps in math knowledge, which, you know, I didn't take math for a long time, with, you know, being able to conceptualize stuff about currency flows, about the banking system, about how to create money. And I figured at that point, I really wanted to write about economics, finance, and also I was interested in politics and the confluence of it. And that's kind of like what I did through my career. I was a general assignment reporter. My first job, I did a bunch of internships. I did a internship with a guy who's deceased, dead. His name is Bob Green. He ran the investigative team at Newsday. He was a high profile corporate and government investigator. He won 2 Pulitzers. I was an intern for him. He was kind of a role model for me on one end. There's another guy at the University of Missouri named James Gentry, professor, who was another role model, who schooled me in how to cover business journalism. And that's what I did. And as I got on in my career, I covered the confluence of business and business, finance, and politics. I spent some time at something called the Bond Buyer, where I covered essentially the confluence of Wall Street and government. I went to New York Newsday, did that there. I went to the Journal, spent a chunk of time there.
Well, CNBC, your big breakout?
Well, what happened was,
for your career?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It was more the Journal. I mean, the Journal taught me the basics of journalism. They put me up for a bunch of prizes, Pulitzers. Won some, didn't win the Pulitzer, unfortunately. What happened was I left the Journal to go to Newsweek. This is before Newsweek. Newsweek's a shell of itself. This is when it was a real magazine, and it was run by serious people. And I was there about 18 months, not quite 2 years. And I remember the first 9 months were really good. The second 9 months, I saw the magazine business collapse. At that point, I was doing more business, more TV. CNBC had me on a lot when I was at the Journal. They would have me on then. I did a bunch of MSNBC before it became very political. I covered the Martha Stewart trial when I was working at the Journal for MSNBC for Dan Abrams, who had a nightly show mostly about law, and it wasn't the sort of political stuff you see now. Then CNBC called me, and I just said, okay, do I stay with journalism, print, or do I do this? Do I make print part of this? And that's kind of what I did. What I tried to do at CNBC, even though it was very difficult at first, I sucked on TV, and it was hard. It was hard. I had to get up early. I mean, I hated it at first. What I tried to do, though, is remake my career in the sense that, okay, you have to do TV. You have to know. And TV now is what you're doing now as well. Remember, it's a huge difference, but that trained me for what the medium has changed into now. I said, I'm never going to give up my day job of writing. I'm still going to keep breaking stories, but I'm going to do TV and get into the confluence of it all. And that's what I learned at CNBC. I got lucky. I got there a year before the financial crisis. And then when the financial crisis came, the financial crisis was perfect for me because I was training my entire career to cover it. I had the sources. I had the Wall Street sources. I had the Washington sources from all my years covering it at the Journal and Newsweek. And it was like breaking those stories was like a 80-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle of the plate. And I broke the TARP story. I broke AIG's bailout. I broke a lot of stuff on Lehman and Bear. It was all right there for me because I had the sources developed. And I was there 4.5, 5 years. And, I liked CNBC a lot. Okay. Right. But Roger Ailes came calling. And and I had an out in my contract, and they had a management change. There was a guy running. My old boss, Jonathan Wald, had left. I was very close to him. They had brought a new guy in. Not going to get into the. He was the guy was in my view wasn't very good. He didn't last there very long after I left, by the way. But when he came in, I wanted out, and I was like, do I work for this guy? I worked for Roger Ailes, and it was like a no-brainer. And I exercised, which was essentially a joint option in the contract. They kind of had to agree with it, but not. And we left very well. I mean, the guy who runs CNBC at the top is a very good guy, Mark Hoffman. And we left on good terms. I'm still friends with him. I'm still friends with 90% of the people there, but they are competitors, and I'm very competitive with them.
Okay. And
I went to Fox Business.
Yeah. So being competitive, and, I've been watching a lot of your stories and your background with the economy, and you say, you were prepping for the financial crisis. No way to prep unless you're over 100 years old for what's happening here with COVID, Charlie. What did you have to develop a whole new source of people, epidemiologists, or it's something that you don't cover, but it sure has its reach all the way through.
Here's the thing, Dale. One of the good things about covering Wall Street, and when I say Wall Street, hedge funds, sophisticated investors, is that they have money and they have access to a lot of good information. And I have access to a lot of good hedge funds. The guys that run them, they are tapped into epidemiologists and everybody. One thing I will tell you about COVID is that no one, the access to information is pretty much what you see is what you get. There's no secrets out there about this. I should point out that my brother it's almost like I don't have to tap into an epidemiologist to know what's going on. My brother is an ICU specialist. He's the chairman of medicine at Brooklyn Hospital. He's got an MD from SUNY Stony Brook in several disciplines. He's got a PhD in chemistry from Columbia. And if you talk to any epidemiologist, they would say the frontline workers, the Green Berets of the COVID crisis, are the people in critical care and in ICUs, which my brother is an expert at critical care. So I knew a lot what was going on on this thing, even before it hit. I knew that it was serious. I knew that anybody that was downplaying it was idiotic. I also knew, because I have an economic background, that the notion that you could just shut everything down and hibernate away the thing was absurd. That we needed to open up in a smart way. I'm very critical of Governor Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, what they're doing to New York City and New York State. I'm of the opinion, and this is based on like not being a denier, that you protect people that have sickness. You're going to have outliers, like 40-year-old people that look healthy die. It's just the way it goes. It happens with everything, with flu and everything.
Yeah, everything.
Most people have to live their lives within reason, and because you just can't shut down society, or else you're going to get what we're having now, which is this nonstop unrest. And I think part of the problem is, I'm not going to excuse Donald Trump for what he did. I'm not going to excuse the Democrats for acquiescing to the violence over the summer, which is what they did. But part of the reason why the country's in the state it's in is that we're on a permanent lockdown, I think. And I'm not saying we should all go out and throw away our masks and start, doing raves, but we should be living our lives normally within certain reasons, because this is an unnatural state, and it's now boiling over, obviously, into this whatever is going on. And how do I know that? Well, I know that because I talk to doctors, I talk to my brother, I talk to people like that. Listen, this is a bad thing. It's highly communicated. You can get it easy. Most people survive. The vast majority of people survive it. There are outliers we have to protect. But that's kind of life here, and let me tell you something. I take all the precautions. I wear a mask. I wash my hands. I eat outside. I went to a very good restaurant in Greenwich last night, Pulpo. My buddy owns it, Ron Rosa. Had a great time. I had dinner with a couple of friends. I made sure we were outside with 3 heat lamps on us. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
so
yeah.
That's me.
So life goes on. Life goes on with it. So the shirt I'm wearing, Charlie, it looks like a flag, but it's really, the title of the shirt was America in Distress. And I want to talk a little bit about what happened in DC and what we have to look forward to with the new administration. How do we, in your view, keep our country with such division and polarity and really a lack of civility between people who have different opinions? How do we become America again?
Well, there was always a middle ground. Okay, listen, the tail never wagged the dog. The AOC types were never, in the old days, probably like 10 years ago, were never the ones in charge of the left. The radical Trumpkins were never in charge of the right.
Right.
They had voices, but they were not in charge. I think we kind of got to get back to that level of discourse where the adults in the middle. Now, let's see if Chuck Schumer becomes the adult. Let's see if Joe Biden becomes the adult. That doesn't mean you have to disavow, every bit of liberalism, but do you lead this country in a way that's more moderate, that kind of expresses your goals, kind of along the lines of what Bill Clinton did and even Barack Obama, or do you let the left control? If you let the left control, you're going to get more of what you got 2 days ago. I mean, this is a very divided country. The extremes are incredibly radicalized. What I don't get, and this is just me, why law enforcement allows this to happen. I mean, those riots during the summer, people breaking into, billy clubs are supposed to be used for that. I don't understand how those guys get in and walk in without someone smashing them in the head with a club. And I mean, you don't know if they're carrying bombs. I mean, they're in a
they were.
They breached the protocol. If you get shot, you get shot. You know what I'm saying? You know what you're getting involved in. And I don't know how the police allow that to happen, because when
it's like they had a free pass to get into the Capitol.
It's just unbelievable. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you allow people to destroy Midtown Manhattan during the summer without police. And by the way, I think the police want to do their jobs. I think they're being held back. And I'll tell you, when you have that type of breakdown in society, then it filters though through everything at some point. It filters through the economy. It filters through the markets. You get crazy ideas like the modern monetary theory. Okay, let's just keep printing money. It's funny. It's like how much that I was listening to your last guest about just how crazy it is that we're debasing the currency as much. And when will it ever happen? Well, it's going to happen at some point. Never before have you commoditized something that it doesn't lose much of its value. It's just histories. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And the reason why we have Bitcoin at whatever it is, 4 gazillion, what is it today?
Yeah.
40,000.
Can you wrap your head around blockchain?
Yeah, it's because I've read. There's a great story in the New Yorker about that. The reporter sort of like unwound it. I think it was Nick Palmgarten. I understand it basically conceptually. I don't think it's worth what it's trading at, but I can get it. There's a reason why people are flocking to that. Okay, and it's not because they think the U.S. currency is sound. Okay, and these are warning signs that there's going to be a there's going to be a comeuppance for printing so much cash.
Isn't that what we were talking about, Charlie? And everyone seems to be having their own version or talking about the Great Reset by the World Economic Forum, and there's going to be maybe the IMF comes up with some type of new formula for currency. What do you think?
Probably. I knew the train was coming off the tracks when an esteemed epidemiologist, I think his name was Ossoff, I can't remember. If I got his name wrong, if it's the wrong guy, I'm sorry, don't sue me. But an esteemed epidemiologist was interviewed, and he was on Biden's COVID task force, so you can find this out. Was suggesting that we should shut everything down, immediately. Do like a month or 2 month COVID shutdown, complete shutdown, and float like trillions of dollars of debt just to give people money. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, does this guy does he understand the way this works? So
you even have extremes there. You have extremes about shutdowns, and then I'd say the other extreme is herd immunity. Let as many people as possible just get sick, even though hospitals, ICUs are, as your brother would attest to, are overwhelmed. So again, where's the middle ground for us coming through this?
Yeah, his isn't quite overwhelmed, by the way. Some are in California.
Okay.
I mean, listen, I don't think we're quite at the, at the take it off the, just everybody be free right now, which is why they're not totally overwhelmed. Listen, here's what I think. I think the middle ground is something we need politicians. We need our politicians to do what we pay them to do, which is manage.
Right.
It's either total shutdown or for the most part, and some of the people that are doing it is like Ron DeSantis. I think he's doing it right. I look at the numbers in Florida. They're not flying off the track. They're flying off the track in California where you have full lockdowns. I mean, he's managing it. You gotta wear masks in certain places. It's not total freedom down there. It's more freedom. It makes New York look like the gulag. I get it, but it's more freedom. And I think what we should be paying Mayor de Blasio here in New York, Gavin Newsom in California, Governor Cuomo, is to manage us through the crisis. What I don't understand, help me out here. Why can't, if masks do work, okay, why can't we have movie theaters at 50% capacity with everybody wearing a mask? It's better than nothing. You know what I'm saying? If masks do work, and why are we just shutting down all the inside dining? Why let them? The 25% in New York was they found no relationship to 25% and COVID transmission. Forget about outdoor. You can't eat outdoors in California. What is that all about? And I just don't understand, like, some of these public policy. There's no management here.
Right. It's because it's state by state.
And manage it. And by the way, if you need more hospital beds, get more. I don't understand how you don't ask the federal government for more. I mean, listen, Donald Trump did something stupid 2 days ago. I mean, reckless, stupid, horrible, and he should resign like yesterday. I get that. But during the heat of the COVID crisis in New York, that was during March, April, May, when it was really bad. It's not like that now here in New York. During that, I mean, listen, he opened up the federal budget for us. I mean, PPE, you name it, beds. We had access to that. I don't understand why, Gavin Newsom and Cuomo and if any of these places that are being overwhelmed can't ask the federal government for more and manage this situation. Listen, you just can't shut down society. It's never going to happen. It's never been done before. It'll destroy the country. It'll be the cure will be worse than the disease, and they don't. And these liberal politicians don't get it. I mean, maybe they just like being in charge of everything. I don't know. I mean, it's just it defies a degree of logic.
Okay, so entering a new era, politically, with the Congress, the Senate, Democrats having, at least marginal control in the Senate, unexpected. How do you think we work out of this economically? I mean, we've been in a managed, central planned economy since, God, even back to the Greenspan days. Have you ever seen a situation where a former Fed chairman has become Secretary of the Treasury? I don't believe Robert Rubin was ever at the Fed. He was at Goldman and became Secretary of the Treasury. But what do you think of Yellen, who was part of the Kumbaya crowd with Paul and Bernanke when the markets were getting hammered a couple years ago, and Paul got the message, and we're on this course now. Do you see this just being a continuation with Janet Yellen at Treasury and Powell at the Fed?
Listen, I'm just a simple country reporter. Who am I to judge a brilliant economist? Which she's a smart lady. Don't get me wrong, smart person, I should say. If you look at her record, it wasn't that great. At the Fed, at the Treasury, did Bernanke and Yellen, who were both at the Fed, really grasp what was going on Wall Street during the early days of the financial crisis? I mean, they were kind of clueless early on. I remember I covered it. I mean, if you remember it
will be contained.
Yeah, it would be contained. I mean, it was just, and then it wasn't. And then, all hell broke loose. And then there was a public policy, effort to clean it up. And, and you got a guy like a bureaucrat, like Geithner and Paulson, Hank Paulson, who was at Goldman as well, and Treasury Secretary, bureaucrats like that, kind of, they know how to throw money at stuff and figure out programs. So that's what they're good at. They're not good at catching this stuff early. And I remember it was funny because CNBC caught a lot of flack for allegedly, it was so weird. Like the right wingers and the people at Bear Stearns were highly angered at us for whipping up a frenzy that there was a problem and that they thought we caused a run on Bear Stearns and Lehman, because of our commentary and covering the stuff. The left, like Jon Stewart, who hated the fact that Rick Santelli had his famous rant about printing money and that created the Tea Party,
right.
thought that we were too easy on Wall Street, and he would pull snippets of stuff out of context where I would say something like I was doing, for example, I'll never forget it, in his famous attack on CNBC. This shows you how disingenuous he was. I did a story early on that AIG was in big trouble. This is before the bailouts. And it was like 8-9 months before the bailouts. And I said, listen, they're not going out of business. And then I said, but they have this big issue. And a lot of people say they're going to need write-down, blah, blah, blah. So he takes a snippet of my quote and says, they're not going out of business. And then it says, AIG blows up. And I'm like, you friggin' idiot. I was attacking them. They hated me. And I tell you, that's what CNBC kind of got hit from both sides. But the reality is we called attention to this. Now, how would a bunch of friggin' journalists call attention to this, and your Ben Burnett can't be like, oh, Bear Stearns went out of business. What is this? I mean, you know? And
Kramer's
Janet
rant.
Rose was
They don't know what they're doing. Kramer's rant.
And for all his negatives, he called it too, right? And he was a guy that he's got issues, but I'm telling you, they were clueless, and she was part of that clueless brigade. And I'm more or less worried about her, though, to be honest with you. Is like, where does the Senate go? Does Biden actually, just from a fiscal policy standpoint, does he actually, even though it's still divided government? I mean, remember, they control the Senate because of a tiebreaker of the vice president.
Right.
Does he go full on with all the crazy stuff he wanted to do from a fiscal policy standpoint, Green New Deal, all these higher taxes, based on Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker? I doubt it too. And I think that's one of the reasons why the markets are kind of like up, to be honest with you. They don't think so. But if he does that.
Yeah. All right. Well, they're euphoric, Charlie. Okay. They're not just up. They're euphoric.
They're
what are your hedge fund?
Because
go ahead. You're
going to ask me, what do my hedge fund guys say about that, right? I mean, here's why they're euphoric. They're euphoric because never-ending printing money, which these guys, stock traders, look at the, they have the attention span of fleas, so that's good, right? They're euphoric on print of expansive fiscal policy, and they're euphoric that even though it's nominally the Democrats control the Senate, it's still wickedly divided government, and they don't think Biden is going to do anything crazy. It's I could what they're saying is like if the Senate was really 51-49. And it was a real majority, even if it's by one, that would be worse. The fact that it's 50-50 and almost 50-50 in the House is where people's minds are at in terms of fiscal policy. They just don't think Biden's going to go full on, and maybe he won't. And if you throw that on top of never ending money printing, just spend $2,000 checks coming. That's theoretic, and throw on top of it all a vaccine, which does work, by the way. My brother.
Are you going to get the vaccine, Charlie?
I'm going to get it in a minute. I could get it. My brother just got his second shot. He had, marginal adverse. Really, I mean, I think he said he was tired one day, like really tired. He slept a lot after the first one. He didn't have anything on the second one. Now, mind you, he's in very good shape. He runs, he does MMA, boxing. I work out a lot. I run a lot, and I lift. And so, I mean, I think if you keep in shape, you'll be okay here. But, we may not be typical, but I'm going to get it as soon as I can get it. So you throw all that stuff together. As soon as I get the vaccine, this is just my mind work. If you think about rationally, I'm going to Vegas with my friends. I'm going to spend a bunch of money.
Okay, and there's going to be a lot more sex too, right, Charlie?
I guess so. Not for me, but I'm just saying. I'm going to spend my time, and I'm going to spend my time eating some good meals, having some fun.
I missed that. Yeah,
I just missed the things like sitting in a bar and having a drink with a friend and just complaining about stuff in a bar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that we all have a new sense of appreciation of things we took for granted after this, don't we?
Yeah, and I think we're going to be spending money. So if you put all that together, the markets are kind of and they look beyond. I know they also don't take Donald Trump as serious as other people. Let's be clear.
Okay, so Charlie, really was nice talking to you, and I hope we could do it again.
Okay.
What are you looking for as far as what may be wrap it with? What you think could be the next major event that we're looking at in 2021 that John Q. Public should be aware of, because you're a watchman for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think how fast the vaccine gets rolled out is key for the economy. If it gets, if you light a fire under these guys, maybe the economy will come back fast. It's the best stimulus package you can ever get. How much does Joe Biden go to the left? I think the other knowns are known. I mean, we know they're going to keep printing money. We know that what the Fed's going to do. Fiscal policy is a question mark. The vaccine effort is a question mark, and I think that's just the two things. If I was an investor, I'd be watching.
Okay, well, Charlie, you and I may have some different political views, but we proved today that we could have a conversation.
Rational,
And that,
right?
yeah, and we could like each other. I long for the days when Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan could adjourn Congress and have a drink together, sip brandy together.
Listen, Tom Daschle and Trent Lott used to do that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see if Mitch and Joe get together and break bread together. That's my hope for 2021.
That sounds like a good deal.
All right, Charlie, really, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for coming here and sharing your views and your journey with us here on F.A.C.E.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, that's a wrap, everyone, for our interview for our week. And remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing Charlie. I hope to get him back again. It was enjoyable to me. I hope to get a haircut like Blake did. And why don't you guys just sign up and hang out with the traders in the chat room in 2021. You're welcome, everyone. Okay, have a great weekend. Yeah, nice hairstyle. Shabbat shalom, Amira. Inshallah to all my Muslim friends. And peace, most of all, peace to everyone. Adios.